I'm going to get started here. Carrie is probably going to just admit people while they start to slowly funnel in, just so everybody knows who I am. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Samantha Williams. I'm the Director of Client Services with We Need a Vacation. If you've never been to one of our virtual office hours, these are more casual. So even though we have this really short presentation, um, after that, we'll open it up for discussion. Sarah's going to be monitoring chat. So if you have any questions you'd like to put in chat, if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself when we're ready for discussion, yeah, just throw them in chat. Sarah can ask the question for you, would be great. We have Joan Talmadge on hand also, co-owner of the company, who will be happy to assist with the discussion afterwards. However, our office hour is being run by our resident vacation rental expert, Carrie Hillman. And Carrie, there you are. Carrie has been a vacation rental owner for more than a decade and has been living and breathing short-term rentals here with We Need a Vacation for the last few years. And so she's the perfect person to be hosting this office hour. So with that being said, I'm just going to hand it right off to Carrie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Hillman. I've been on the We Need a Vacation homeowner support team for about 4 years now. And as Sam mentioned, renting my homes as vacation rentals for about 10 years. So yes, I'm happy to dive into this discussion about what we learned from the 2024 season. So this is a little overview here, just that we had a busy 2024 and what we're going to be looking at moving into 2025. We'll talk about some things that you can do to stay proactive, maintaining relationships with your vacationers. And then we'll also talk about how to optimize your listing so that you can put your best foot forward. Okay, so we'll dive right in here. So looking back on 2024. So like I said before, it was a really busy season. Things were hopping. We saw a lot of vacationer activity. We actually saw more vacationer activity than we did in 2019. So that means we saw more inquiries and more bookings than we did in 2019. We did have a few more listings than we had in 2019, but still a lot of vacationer activity happening. We did see a little bit of a softening of the rental market, so it's coming back down to pre-pandemic levels. So that's kind of why we compare our numbers to 2019, because those years in between were kind of higher and more active than we typically see. So again, it didn't hit rock bottom. We're just coming back down to normal. And so for those that started renting during the pandemic years, it might seem like it's quite a drop. But let me assure you that we're just getting back to the regular, and thousands of people still flocked to the Cape and Islands this summer to enjoy our beaches, restaurants, and your homes. So pricing trends that we saw happening this last summer. So people were tempering it down a bit from pandemic prices. If you feel like you didn't do so well last summer, maybe you can take that as an indication that your pricing was a little too high, or maybe if something was off with your listing, that was affecting things as well. And always feel free to reach out to our staff to get some advice about your listing. We're here to help. We did see some availability still at the end of the summer. And so often this was with homes that had prices that started off too high. They tried to drop their prices down a little bit too late. I mean, sometimes people were even dropping their prices by thousands of dollars. So that can give you a good sense that that price started off way too high in the season. So then let's move on to looking ahead for 2025 pricing. So we're going to go over a few points today. We have limited time, but for a deeper dive on the pricing report from 2024 and how to do your pricing for 2025, Jim will be going into a lot of data and statistics, more in-depth analysis at the conference that we're hosting at the end of the month. So stay tuned for that. and you'll get a lot of really good juicy details there. But for today, I'll just kind of do a little overview. So like I mentioned before, some people started off with high pricing and they were dropping it down as we got closer to the summer season. So kind of the moral of that story is get your pricing in now. So get it in now, open your calendar, and don't go in too high with a, super high pricing. People are looking now for rentals. So these folks really want to secure a booking right now. So they're looking for the best deal. They have a lot to choose from. So if your price is outrageous, you may not be the one they choose. And as far as opening up your calendar now, if you're worried about repeat renters, like you have people that come back every year for a certain week, you can still go ahead, open up your calendar if you know you're going to be renting next summer, and offer the repeat renters the right of first refusal. So if you get an inquiry on the first week of July, and you know that Marianne's family always comes the first week of July, get in touch with Marianne and get her to sign her lease, and get going with committing to that week, because you don't want to miss out on booking weeks early because you're holding weeks for renters that might not be coming back. And then if you find that you are not getting bookings early, nothing's coming in this year, and it's maybe January of next year, then think about lowering your price already. Don't wait until June to lower your price. You can start lowering it down in January. Especially if you're on the islands, you'll want to start lowering your prices a little bit earlier so that vacationers can still get their ferry tickets. And another thing is that if you don't start off with these super high prices, you're going to get the bookings early, and then you're going to have happy guests who aren't expecting too much of your home and its amenities. So if you're booking at really high prices or trying to book at really high prices, vacationers might come in with really high expectations also. They think in their head, I'm paying all this money for this vacation rental, and, this problem has come up and that's not what I'm paying for. So it tempers down their expectations a little bit if they have a good price and they feel happy that they got a good deal to get into the house. So then, speaking of expectations, that brings us to the next topic here. Staying proactive with your vacationers. So you want to be really working to build and maintain relationships with each rental party that's coming into your house. And you want to be screening these potential guests ahead of time. So having a phone call with them, having a really good email back and forth, getting to know who they are and what their expectations are. It's does a lot to build that relationship early so that if any bumps do come up along there during their rental, then you have that to fall back on, that you know who they are and know what they're expecting of the house. So this communication, again, as I'm talking about, it should be in advance, but it should also be during their stay and immediately after their stay. So before they arrive, a little while before they arrive, you should be sending them lots of information about the house and how to access the house, reminding them of specific details, like if they need to bring linens or what the address is or what their code is to get in. And then when they're actually in the house, you want to be checking in with them. You can check in on the same day or the next day that they arrive. You can check in midweek. And these should really just be like quick, short check-ins. You don't need to be having any long phone conversations or big interactions, but just a quick check-in to make sure everything's going smoothly. And then the day that they leave, so their day of check out, you also want to make sure right after the house is checked by either it's going to be checked by you or your rental company, your property management company, or your cleaners, whoever's getting in there right after the guest leaves, and they, make sure everything's all set, no major damage or anything. The house is pretty clean. Get in touch right away with that guest and let them know you appreciate that they left the house so clean, and that you'll be sending their security deposit back, and then you can send them a link to write a guest review right away while it's still fresh in their mind and they're still, it's like they're still so happy with their vacation and feeling like they're still in vacation mode a little bit. And then this part about, are you sabotaging your relationship? So make sure you're not messing up your relationship with small things. So you've worked hard to build this relationship with the guest. If something small comes up, something small got broken, don't just go ahead and take that out of their security deposit without discussing it. Or even if it's something big, make sure you discuss it with them before you take any money out of their security deposit. It's much easier to have a rational conversation with a guest before you take that money out of their deposit. Discuss with them, this is what I found, what's your side of the story, what can we come to a deal on here, rather than surprise them by saying, here's half of your security deposit back, and this is what I took out. And then again, after their stay, make sure you're asking for reviews from everybody that was happy with the house. And again, try to do that really soon after their departure, even as soon as on the day that they leave the house. It's not too soon. All right, and moving on here. So now we'll talk a little bit about optimizing your listing. So this is what's going to help you to stand out from the crowd. Something we saw this year, and we've seen it in years past, but this year it was more noticeable because there was so much competition amongst homes this year, is that 2 to 3 bedroom listings are so common, and you really want to try to do something to make yours stand out. So if you have a 2 or 3 bedroom, think about the things you have in the house already, any special amenities that you have that you can make the house stand out by promoting. Or if you don't have anything special, think about what you might be able to add, what's within your budget, and what would be fun for you to have if you go to the house, if you spend any time at the house. So you can add things like a sauna, a hot tub. A pool is a pretty big investment, but it's a great one. Outdoor shower, kayaks, having bikes available for the vacationers to use, indoor things like a pool table, a foosball table, or ping pong table are all super fun. If you can add a fenced-in backyard, or if you can put a swing set up in the backyard, anything like that, anything that's fun that will get vacationers' attention when they're looking through the listings and make yours stand out a little bit. Take a picture of it, put it in your title. Maybe you have a great location, and so maybe you're near the bike trail. You can put a picture of the bike trail and make sure you promote that in your listing. Other things are, you can offer linens, towels, beach towels. Those are all really helpful to encouraging vacationers to want to book your place. It makes their stay much easier. And if you're not around to do that laundering, you can have a cleaner do that, ask your cleaners if they do that, or you can order from a linen supply company. And again, yes, the vacationers can order from the linen supply company on their own, but it is so much easier if you're doing it and you just do it for every week across the summer. It really helps the vacationer have a smoother trip. Other things you can do to stand out: offer beach gear, offer umbrellas, beach chairs, kid sand toys, or kid toys that are indoors, and take a picture of those things and put them in your listing, and make sure that the vacationer knows they don't have to pack 8 beach chairs for their trip. It will make things so much easier for them. And this one is definitely dependent on your listing and how you run it, but if you're able to allow pets, consider adding pets as an option. So many people got pets during the pandemic, and they love to travel with their dogs, especially they're part of the family. And if you do allow pets, think about some special pet amenities, like have a pet bed, a water bowl, maybe give some pet treats in your welcome gift. You can leave some pet tick spray that they can spray on their dog. Have a fenced-in yard, or promote your fenced-in yard if you have one, and then offer up some pet-friendly beach options that are nearby. So all these things, these are the fun extras that vacationers really get excited about, and will help them notice your listing over all the other 2 or 3 bedrooms that are available. Okay, and then still optimizing your listing here. You want to be consistent and make sure your listing matches. If you are listing on different platforms. So make sure you sync it across all the platforms so everything is similar. So especially with minimum stays, that's a really important one we noticed this summer. If you don't have matching minimum stays on different platforms, it can kind of mess up your calendar. So make sure you're really paying close attention to all those details if you're listing on different platforms. And then with the minimum stay, we always recommend in the off season to reduce your minimum stay. You can go down to even 2 nights if people want to just come down for a weekend. And then this summer, we saw a lot of people reducing their minimum stay for the summer. So dropping it down to 5 or 4 night minimum stay just to try to get some extra bookings in there. And again, it's important that you make sure it matches across platforms if you are reducing this minimum stay for the summer. Another way to optimize your listing is to use owner specials. So if you don't know what those are, they're right in the homeowner center. It's a free little banner that we can put across your listing, and you can promote any kind of deals that you're offering. So if you're dropping the price at all, you can put that into your owner special, and say you have some sort of deal for the winter off season, you can put that in the owner special. Any maybe Thanksgiving or holiday specials. If you have a festival in your town, like Oyster Fest or something, make sure you put that into your owner special. Maybe there's a school vacation week coming up and you can promote that. All those things are great. It's just, again, it's a little banner that as the vacationer is scrolling down through the search results, they'll see that little blurb and it can grab their attention to get them to click into your listing. Another thing you're going to want to do is revisit your lease agreement. This is really important, especially if you've been renting for a while or even a short time. It's always good to revisit the lease agreement. You can make any necessary adjustments. You can update your cancellation terms or clarify them. If you feel like you need to add a clause about limited parking or something else that's been coming up with your renters, be sure to add all those items in, and we can recommend an attorney to you that can review your agreements with you. So reach out to us if you need help with that. Okay, so that concludes my presentation, and I'm going to pass it back to Sam to go over details for our upcoming conference. And thanks.
Yeah. So we told you the presentation would be short here with this office hour, right? We really want to open it up for your discussion. But as you can see too, Carrie just really touched the tip of the iceberg on all of this. We go into amazing detail with a very nice presentation from our COO, Jim Reese, at our Cape and Islands Vacation Rental Conference. Just for anybody who received maybe the first email that you saw on it, just a quick side note, the Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is not going to be ready for our event. So we had to move venues. So it's now at the Emerald Resort in Hyannis. That was formerly the Hyannis Conference Center. So off of the Rotary, off of West Main in Hyannis. They are professionals over there. They're amazing. We're serving breakfast for anybody who would like to attend. And then Jim does a fantastic presentation. We offer you a tote and a whole bunch of swag. We have twice as many vendors as we had last year. There'll be an attorney on hand. There'll be insurance will be there, Cape Cod linens, rentals. So we do have some amazing local vendors for you. The first hour of the conference is typically us having breakfast, sitting down and networking, meeting some of those vendors. We have a presentation, it's about an hour and a half or so, and then the last hour is more networking. So if you can squeeze us in for at least that presentation, I promise you, it's amazing. It is. We sold out on this last year. We're very excited to present it to you this year. It's $25 per ticket, which doesn't even cover the cost of the venue. But we're hoping that you can make it and highly recommend it, at least for that data and analysis from Jim and a very intense pricing report that goes into a lot more detail. The conference itself is not going to be entirely recorded because it's a presentation plus a networking event. So we really want to encourage attendance and your participation. So we welcome you attending and really hope you can make it that morning with us on September 28th. But enough of the commercial. Would love to hear from you. So I'm gonna feel free to unmute yourselves, ask questions, but I'm gonna turn to Sarah, see if there was anything that came in chat, maybe Sarah?
Yes, Sophie just asked a question. How do you recommend handling return renters who are used to paying the higher rate that they may see the lower rates advertised for next year? Sophie, if maybe you could clarify a little bit more. I'm assuming you mean asking to pay the rate they paid this year when they may be seeing the higher rate for next year. Just want to make sure we understand it correctly.
You got it.
Do you want to take this one, Joan?
Sure. Many people, would like to honor their and have return guests. They're like gold. And so, but you want to be fair to yourself too. So if you raise your rates and you really would like someone to return, you can do a couple of things. You could either offer to meet them in between what they paid last year and the new higher price, or you could give them a year's grace and just say you can pay what you paid last year. It really depends on your individual situation, but you do want it, and in some cases, if let's say you enhance your home in some way and you've increased your rates justifiably, and you need to go up considerable amount, you may lose some repeat guests, but that's the way it is. And, you will get other guests who will return and become repeat guests as well.
Great. Thank you. Lisa asked, we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We had 3 weeks still open in June 2024, and I dropped the price just below $3,000 and was able to rent all 3 weeks. Do you recommend dropping to this price starting in January if we're not booked by then for the 2025 season?
That's good.
Yeah, I would just say, kind of play it by ear, see how it's going. If you aren't booking anything by January, then yes, consider lowering it back down. But if you have a few weeks booked, then, you can lower it a little bit and make sure you're tiering your pricing too. So the hottest weeks of the summer, end of July into the beginning of August are going to be your higher prices, and then a little bit lower, dropping down on the other side of that.
Great. Ruth asked, any advice for special cleaning for rentals with pets? I'm concerned about renters with allergies. I know you offer pets considered on your rental, Carrie. Do you do anything special?
So I just make sure that my cleaners are aware when there are pets in the house. And I've talked with them, that we want to try to get every single piece of pet hair out of there if possible. If you do know there's something like a golden retriever coming in, then yes, I would definitely say get in touch with your cleaners and make sure they're leaving a little bit of extra time so that they can get everything clean. And then make sure you're having your bedspreads laundered, and any pillow covers that are removable, have 2 sets of those. So you can take those off and wash those, because especially ones on the couch can get, dog hair on them, and sometimes it doesn't vacuum off super easy. So it's nice to be able to switch those out quickly.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Really get stuck in there.
Yeah.
This is a question we've actually seen a lot this year. What's the best way to handle EV charging? This is becoming more and more popular.
Yeah. So the electric vehicle charging, you know, it sort of depends. You can check in with your guests and see if they are planning to be charging a vehicle. If you offer a vehicle charger, you know, it's sort of assumed, unless you're very clear about it, it's assumed that it would be an amenity that's offered free of charge as they're using your home. And it's, you know, it's not too much for them to charge each charge up, unless, of course, you know, I don't know, maybe they're taking really long road trips every day, but they're probably not going to be doing that and charging the vehicle every single day. But if it is something you're concerned about, you can set a rate that they will pay to use the charger. You can install a little machine they have ones that are like for home use that you can see how much they're using, and they can either pay through the machine or you can charge them based on how much they're using. There are all kinds of new things coming out all the time about how to kind of manage this. And then also some people do have people that do what's called a trickle charge. It's just they use a regular outlet and charge their car, and it kind of slowly charges overnight. And that one, I mean, you probably won't even know the vacationer's doing that. And if they're doing that once in a while, I don't know, I would just roll that into your rental rate and don't get too worried about it. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else have any experience doing this or charging for electric cars? I think it's still rare enough that it's not a huge problem. And again, it's not a huge cost each time they charge up. I don't know, maybe like $20 per charge, I think is what it amounts out to.
Yvonne is asking, what are the amenities that more people are asking for?
Okay, so people, of course, love pools. That's a little bit harder to add if you don't already have a pool, but they love them. And people love outdoor showers. That's another one. And the outdoor shower actually isn't that difficult to add. You just have to do the plumbing outside and then put up the little wooden fence kind of thing around it, the enclosure. And that's something a handyman could install for you pretty easily. And people love Cape Cod outdoor showers. And then fire pits are another one. Those are a little more controversial. You know, if it's like a gas one or a wood one, you just have to be super clear with your expectations around the fire pit and how the guest will be using it and where in the yard the guest can use it to make sure everybody stays safe. But they do love roasting their marshmallows, especially if they've got kids in the family. Other amenities, kayaks are another really fun one that's not too hard to add, especially if you're near a body of water that they can use it. We do have an addendum to the lease that you can add on if you're going to be renting out or letting vacationers use kayaks or bikes or things like that. What other amenities? Help me out. Anybody else want to add anything?
Did you say air conditioning, Carrie?
Oh, yes, air conditioning.
That's becoming more and more popular.
Right. And it's becoming more and more expected, actually. You know, it's pretty, it's a pretty expected amenity these days, especially in the heat of the summer. And if you don't have air conditioning, you can even just add window units into the bedrooms is an easy way to add that in fairly inexpensively. But just be super clear about where it is if it's not the whole house. You know, if it's only in the bedrooms, make sure that's in your description. Make sure you're discussing it on the phone when you have a phone call with them. Like for my house, for instance, we have central air upstairs in the bedrooms, and then downstairs we have a few window units. And so I make sure to explain that clearly to the vacationers so they know what they're getting into, and that our house definitely cools off in the summer, but it's not going to be freezing cold like air conditioning at the mall or something. Yeah.
Good.
So, and the main thing there is just, yes, be super clear about where it is and what your expectations are. And if it is just in the bedrooms and you don't want them trying to cool the whole house with it, make sure that's clear as well. Because sometimes, you know, they'll turn it on the bedrooms, close everything else up and hope that the rest of the house gets cold. But then that's really maxing out those window AC units that were just meant to cool one small room. And I think we had a question come in advance about vacationers setting the air conditioning down to 62 when they're coming into the house. And this is a tricky one. You know, you can suggest what they set it to. I have a note right by my thermostat that says, please don't set it below 70. This can stress the air conditioning system, and it's really not meant to function at, 30 degrees colder than the outside air. That's sort of ridiculous. And for the most part, people are pretty respectful. I do have one group that comes back every year, and right away when they get to the house, they turn it down to 65. And I usually have to send them a message and I say, hey, just make sure you're keeping the air at, somewhere around 70. 68 is okay. It's not great, but it's fine. And just 65 is like very low. So
Machine.
yeah, and what's going to happen is, especially if it's a hot day out, the air conditioner will be working so hard, the system will be working so hard that you could freeze it up and then they end up with no air conditioning. So you don't want that to happen to them. And helping them understand that, if they set it down to 62, that doesn't mean it's going to get cold faster. The system is still going to cool at the same rate to get it colder in the house. So, and on really hot days, you might have the vacationers who are leave the air conditioning on so that the house can kind of stay cool all day until the next people come in, so that people don't arrive to a super hot house. Sometimes that's nice, especially on those hot weeks in the middle of the summer. Yeah, anyone want to add anything else about air conditioning?
Well, not about air conditioning necessarily, but this came in just a minute ago, and I just thought it ties in really well with what we're talking about, Carrie. Amenities, linen charges. What are
Okay.
what are you seeing? What are we seeing for people charging for linens? If you're already providing pillows and bed sheets, are you offering additional things at a cost?
Mhm. So I would say about half of our homes offer linens and half don't. I think that's about where the split is. We should probably go back and check on the recent stats for that. But last we checked, it was about half and half. Because, it is kind of the old Cape Cod way to have people bring their own linens. I would say, I don't know of anywhere else that does that for, vacation rentals. So it is a kind of a unique thing about our area. And so if you don't offer linens, make sure your guests are aware of this and super clear on it, and they know the bed sizes and they know exactly what they need to bring. Like, do you have bedspreads? Do you not have bedspreads? Do you have extra blankets? Things like that. And then as far as if you do offer linens, if your amenities say that you offer linens, then you should not be charging for linens. So if someone reads your listing and it says linens are included, that's great. And then that's included in the rental rate. But if you don't offer linens and you want to offer separately that they can that you can supply them at a charge, and that's okay. And then I would say just get in touch with a linen rental company and see what their rates are, and then pass that on to the vacationer. I would not charge extra than what they are charging, just because that's kind of the going rate. And then as far as what that going rate is, I'm not super familiar with those rates, but I don't know, I want to say it's like $10 or $15 per bed or something like that. And it really depends on the quality of the linens. If it's half cotton, half polyester, those are going to be cheaper. And then the full 100% cotton are going to be more expensive. And then of course, if you're including towels and beach towels, that will up the price as well per bed. And also the bed size matters. It's, twin is less expensive than a king size rental set. But I would say just get in touch with any of the linen companies, and there are a few listed on our website under the vendors list.
I just put a link to that for our home services directory.
Yes, awesome. And then some cleaners will launder the linens as well, and you'll just want to ask them what they're going to be charging you to do that. Some it's included and some they charge extra. Typically, you want to try to have a few extra sets of linens if your cleaners will be doing it. Because you can't expect that the cleaner is going to be able to wash all the sheets during the turnover, dry them, and then get them back onto the beds. That's just like a lot for them to be handling.
Mhm. Thank you. Lisa had a question about an inquiry for 2025 summer for 6 weeks. What should she be thinking in considering this request in terms of taxes or anything else? And is this a bad idea because it may block out potential return renters from last year or from having new relationships in 2025 that could become return renters? And I let her know about the 31 days, over 31 days in short-term rental tax does not apply, but maybe you can give some additional insight to that, Carrie.
Yeah, sure. Oh, did you want to say something, Joan?
Well, I was just reacting to that. I think first she should make sure she really wants them in her home for 6 weeks. It's a long period of time. I would, if they are able to, I would ask them to come and see the house and meet her before they commit and before you commit to them. Because people who stay for a long time they really hunker down, they use the house harder, and they have more requests during their stay. It could be a perfectly great opportunity for you, but we have heard of nightmares too, where the people arrive for a long period of time and they're unhappy because it didn't meet their expectations. And if they're only there for a week, it's a very different story. But 6 weeks is a long time. And you're right, you will lose some repeat tenants. They're going to move on and they may find another house that they like almost as well as yours and become repeat tenants there. So you just have to be careful. And as far as price, that's always difficult. Obviously, you would give them a break, but you'd also want cleaners to come in during their stay. And you do not want to have them leave after 6 weeks of no one being in there to assess what's going on in the house and to do some cleaning. Your cleaners will be pretty annoyed with you if they have to clean the house and they have a few hours to do it. I'm sure you would have cleaners go in the meantime. But there's a lot to consider, and we're happy to talk to you about that offline. Carrie, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, as far as having the cleaners go in between, you could do every 2 weeks or something, the cleaners come in, and then I would offer it, or what I typically do is offer it complimentary, because I've had vacationers who say, oh, no, we'll keep it clean, don't worry. We don't want we don't want to pay for cleaners, or we don't want to pay extra to have cleaners come in. But really, your cleaners are there to help you out and check in and make sure they're not trashing the place, or they don't have tons of extra guests, or they're not planning a big party. And then they're also there to actually clean and make sure they're maintaining the cleanliness of the house. And also I've had someone request that they get their own cleaner because they can get a better rate. But you want it to be your cleaner because your cleaner knows the house, they know how you like it to be cleaned, and they can keep tabs so that when they come back at the end of this long stay, they know what they have to do to get it ready for the next renters. So yeah, I think the cleaning is a big part of that long-term rental, because the cleaner can also kind of spy on them and make sure they're doing everything right for you.
I'm just going to add to that real quickly. Sarah touched on it. Over 31 days, they become a long-term tenant, which also means they have the right to quiet enjoyment. So what you don't want to do is spring cleaners on them after they're in the property as well. That is an agreement you have to come to prior with your lease agreement. So you'll just want to have that discussion with them ahead of time. The requirement of you of you having a 6-week term lease agreement is that we do want cleaners to come in there. Are you okay with this? And I would have them sign off on that ahead of time. What you can't do is come in after the fact and say, I'm sending cleaners over. So
Mhm.
make that little note.
Good point. Thanks, Sam.
Do you think it, in terms of the long-term rental, one of her other questions was, do you think that would, where do you guys lie in accepting a 6-week rental and blocking out those dates and maybe risk like losing that week? Like, do you accept long-term rentals like that, Carrie? And if so, I guess a good question would be, what do you change the lease agreement in terms of cancellation policy, things like that, because you know you're blocking out a good chunk of your peak season.
Right. So I haven't actually accepted a long-term summer renter for multiple weeks like that. We have one group that does 2 weeks every year. But part of the reason I haven't accepted is because I do have returning renters who have come back for many years and they're kind of scattered throughout. I have the end of August, so I could offer somebody mid-August through mid-September. And I did offer that to someone this year, but they chose a different house. So yeah, I mean, personally, if I had someone who wanted the weeks that these return renters have been coming back every year, I wouldn't offer it to them because I know these return renters, they love our house, and it would be hard for me to lose 3 or 4 weeks of known rentals that come back every summer. And to start from scratch next year, if these people leave and go somewhere else, would be really challenging. So if you can try to squeeze them into a time where you don't have repeat renters, that would be ideal. Or if you can talk with the repeaters and see if they're willing to line up and they all come at the beginning of the summer and then you do your 6 weeks to this other group is another possibility. But unless this group, you know, the 6 weekers, if they said they want to come back every summer, but you just don't know. After they stay once in the house, they might decide this isn't the right fit for their family. You just never know.
I think what you're hearing are a lot of concerns on the part of the staff that this might not be the best idea. At first blush, it sounds, oh, good, I've taken care of all my 6 weeks. But there are a lot of things against this. You have to decide for yourself, but there's a lot of reasons to kind of think twice.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
Regarding those long-term rentals, they're not considered short-term rentals anymore, and you're under the eviction laws at that point. You have residents now, and you have to go through an eviction process. It could take up to a year to get them out. My attorney lives right next door to me in Nantucket, and he says anything over 30 days, you're done. If they stay there, they're residents. You have to go through the full eviction. In Massachusetts.
Right. And that's another reason to really be building that relationship with them in advance. Like Joan said, meet them in person if you can, show them the house, talk through with them what their plans are. You know, if they say they come to the Cape every summer for 1 month and they can give you references from other homes that they've stayed at for 1 month, you know, that might be a good way to handle that.
But you can't, but in Massachusetts, you got to remember there's laws that protect these people over the owners.
right. Ken, you're absolutely right. We give the same advice for homeowners who are looking to find a winter rental, a long-term winter rental. Our best advice is always to make sure that that you have met them and that we've been advised that they have an exit plan. For instance, if they are on a sabbatical or they are renovating their house, but if they have children and they may not have another home to go to, you'd probably be wise to not rent to them. I know,
Yeah.
Sam, you feel pretty strongly about this. You've expressed this in the past.
Yeah, yeah, Ken's expressing all my concerns, actually. The landlord.
It's very true. You'll never get rid of them. And they'll tell you what they want. It's happening all over the Cape. Doesn't happen on Nantucket, but It's happened all over the Cape, and my attorney goes off island, and he's always trying to do evictions. And he said he has more and more people every year squatting and staying.
Yeah, we, you know, unfortunately with the housing crisis and labor shortages and all of that good stuff, yeah, that's certainly.
So I advertise no short-term rentals, or no long-term rentals over 30 days.
Yeah. Sarah, are there other questions?
No additional questions at the moment.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does anyone have advice on how to curtail Comcast costs, or is there any streaming service on the Cape that would enable us to lower our costs for cable TV?
YouTube TV.
Sorry?
was-
You can get YouTube TV,
YouTube TV.
and they
Yeah,
have everything.
There are all different sorts of options, Tom. You could set up something like an Apple TV or a Roku. Some TVs come with the Roku built in, or Google Chromecast. All sorts of different ways for people to stream their shows. And then what they do is they log in with their own accounts that they have to, you know, Netflix or whatever it is that they're watching their shows on. And I think more and more people are not expecting that there's going to be cable there for them, that they are satisfied if they can log in to their different accounts. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, could I add to that?
sure.
With Comcast, you can put your service on seasonal service beginning in October as late as 6 months forward. And it cuts the bill, I would say 40 to 60%. And it still enables you to keep your internet service. So it can still run your thermostats, but it cuts each of the services down to, I think, like 8. The television, you still get some of the services like the on-demand TV, more basic services. So you have something at the house and you still have internet. But 6 months out of the year, you can save probably 40 to 60% of your bill by just calling them and putting it on seasonal service.
That's another good option. Lisa, did you have something to add to that?
I'm gonna say we only have the Comcast for internet because we do the streaming and the Roku TVs, but the price has gone up. It has exactly doubled since we purchased the home 4 years ago. And it hit with no notice or anything. And we've called multiple times. You know, you have to catch them when they have specific deals, but they won't tell you when that is. So I think just keep calling and seeing if, you know, you can get into get new deals over time, but the cost has gone up significantly.
One thing I would like to add too is a lot of these streaming services are catching on to having, multiple users in multiple different areas. So for instance, Netflix now, it pings your IP address. And it's saying, hey, if you haven't registered this computer with this account, you can't, or this TV, you cannot log in this area. So one thing that I've noticed, for instance, my computer can Chromecast to another TV. My computer is set up for, say, Netflix, and then I can Chromecast. So if I feel like it's not every streaming service yet, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind that as things move forward and more of these streaming services start picking up on that, it may be more advantageous to make sure that you have a TV that can at least do a casting, or it's casting available so that you can let the vacationers know, bring your registered devices like your tablet or your computer with you, and you can cast whatever shows you want to the TV. Because it may come down to the point where all of these streaming services that we have on like Roku TV, they won't be able to log into. So just something to keep in mind. Our decades old family Netflix account has now been shut down because we've got family members in 3 different states. So we've all had to get our own. So it's just something to think about.
That's a really good point, Sarah, because also it's sort of annoying to have to log into everything when you first get to the house. Like I know when I return to my house, I have to log everybody else out and log back into my own things. And it's sort of a pain to have to do that to get everything set up. So it's a really
Lori has a great question. Do you recommend the owner be there for every turnover to meet the guests?
Lori, this is a good question. So a lot of vacation rentals are now turning to self check-in so that vacationers can arrive and check themselves in. Some owners do still meet their guests at the house and talk to them and check them in. I feel like it's a mixed bag. Some vacationers are really happy to meet the owner and they feel like it's a good connection to make. If you are there to meet your guests, make it as short and sweet as you possibly can. Hand them the keys, tell them to have a great time, give them a gift card to the ice cream shop, and then be on your way. What you don't need to do is give them a tour of the house and show them how to operate the window AC unit in the bedroom, because that should be self-explanatory. If there is some little quirk to something, sure, you can explain that, but you don't need to tour them through the house, showing them how to turn the oven on and how to operate the window AC unit and how to turn the shower on. I mean, they'll figure all those things out. And if they are complicated or there are nuances, put it into your welcome binder that's sitting on the dining room table. And if, send them a little message that just says, check out the welcome book on how to operate the shower. And then that should be plenty. So again, it's up to you. Oh, go ahead, Joan.
I would just add that if you do live nearby, and I imagine you would not be driving to your rental every week from afar, but I mean, some people do, but that's rare. Usually if you do greet them, you live nearby, but just make sure that you tell them this before they even book your home, because if they have intentions of perhaps bringing more people than you would want, or they tend to be on the loud side, you want them to know that you're right there. You will give them complete privacy. You won't interfere with them, but you are there for them if they have a question or a problem. And I agree with Carrie, her comments about just briefly going through things with them, meeting them, and then leaving them, to their privacy. We have over the years had some situations with vacationers who have complained about someone who was an owner who was overbearing and constantly coming, watering flowers and just being a real presence, a daily presence. And I think vacationers really want to know that they are, this is their home for the week. When we rented our home for 26 summers, we never saw our home from the end of June until September when we, reclaimed it. But, we did have a relationship with our guests nevertheless. It was just not in person.
Yep.
One last question. Does anyone worry about allowing bikes to the renters to use the bike? Is there an insurance concern about that?
So we do have an addendum to our lease that that you might consider adding that protects you if there are injuries or anything with the bicycles. And it is a maintenance issue. You want to make sure that the bikes are in working order for each guest. So if people are using the bikes, make sure they let you know if there are any problems that arise with them. And then do you have someone who can take the bikes to be repaired? Are the bikes getting tuned up every year? Things like that.
Yeah, I was going to mention, Carrie, that in regard to a question about kayaks, many homeowners don't have kayaks that they can loan to their guests, but they do live near a body of water where there's kayaking available. And I always recommend to homeowners, when I see their listing, I see they're near a pond or a lake and kayaking is mentioned, but nothing beyond that, I always recommend to them that they look into kayak rental companies. And there are several on the Cape, and they deliver. So if someone is going to your home for a week and they can arrange with the rental company to deliver the kayaks and stand-up boards and other items to your home or to the body of water that you're very close to. But take advantage of that amenity because and offer it and mention it on your listing because it's so popular. That's why so many families are attracted to the lakes and ponds on the Cape and island.
That's great. One thing I wanted to just make sure everyone, in case you're not looking at the chat, going back to the linens part, I mentioned in the chat, if you are providing an addition, if you're going to keep turnover cleaning linens in your home, one suggestion is to have a lockable owner's closet in your property. That way you can keep your extra linens in there locked up for the cleaner to be able to come in and grab it, and you won't have vacationers going through your entire, couple of weeks supplies if it's in a general closet. So just something I wanted to make sure, if you weren't seeing the chat, something to keep in mind if you are going to provide linens.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I don't have a lockable closet because the slider doors don't really lock and there's other towels in there for the guests to use, but I have bags that are clearly labeled with a date so that the vacationers that are staying in the house can see that that bag is for the next week's group or whatever. And knock on wood, I haven't had a problem with that yet, but it is risky to leave those linens out because you never know if they're going to dig in and use them.
Any other questions?
Yeah, great stuff, everyone. Any other? Feel free to unmute yourself too if you have a question.
I can ask a question if no one else has one.
Go for it.
I asked actually in the chat further up, we're still on well water and the town is now connected to the town water, but we haven't done it yet. Do you see any compelling reason from a rental perspective that we do it? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I would just make sure you're testing the water and that you're letting guests know that it is well water and that they have the option to filter it, or maybe you have a whole house filter. Do you have a whole house filter that filters the water?
No, but we get it tested. We have to get it tested. We get it certified every year.
Right. And then just make sure they have an option that they can filter, like add a Brita or some other filtration option. But no, I mean, I don't see any reason why you'd want to switch unless it's easier for you to not have to worry about testing it every year. Then you just know that you've got the city water or the town. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
I noticed in the forum on Facebook, a red flag, whatever it is, about putting down and looking at issues concerning prior renters. Sort of a heads up, the renter from hell, unquote. Is there such a website that's out there that you can disseminate? Listen, I had a renter in, instead of 8 people, they brought 15, they brought 20, then the list goes on. Is there such a website that we can share problem people with the rest of our merry group?
So I'll let Sam jump in, but before she jumps in, we do have, when you get an inquiry through We Need a Vacation, you can click on the vacationer's profile if they've made one. And then from there, you can see if they've left any reviews. So, 97% of our reviews are very positive. A few people leave a negative review. So if it is one of the people that left a negative review, you can see the review they left and you can see the owner's response to that review. And that will give you a little more information about this vacationer. But then I'll pass it back to Sam to talk about lists of vacationers.
And Sam was laughing and smiling as the question went out.
I was like, Sam's gonna eat this one up.
We may or may not get that question quite a bit. I won't go into long drawn out detail, but the short answer is possibly those are out there. There are Facebook pages that are dedicated to listing poor tenants. I will say this, those are typically national pages. They aren't just pertaining to Massachusetts residents. So I don't know exactly how helpful they are, to be honest with you. The second part of that is in the state of Massachusetts, due to privacy laws, blacklisting is against the law. So if you are caught sort of posting stuff in those pages, in those communities, that type of thing, you can get in trouble for that. So we can't allow for it. They'll shut down our page socially if we allow for people to post that they've had poor tenants. We get those questions all the time. Do we maintain an internal list that we share? Due to the exact same reasons, we do not maintain, nor can we circulate any kind of a list like that. So your best bet is to see if they've been reviewed before, if they've offered up reviews, specifically through our site. Carrie gave great advice on that. But I would tread lightly. I'd just be very, very careful.
I kind of figured that because yes, we do have that law in Massachusetts and nobody wants to get sued for defamation or libel. But I kept noticing red flag lists. And I was curious as to one really ever existed. But I agree with you, Sam, you really shouldn't, but.
Right.
And
It's
I'll-
tempting.
but I'll
It's
end
very tempting. Right.
Okay.
And
Great.
Thank you.
Honestly, fantastic question. We get it. We
And
get
it, this goes back to building that relationship, making sure your lease is super clear, letting them know if you have cameras at the house or if you have something like a Minute device that monitors sound levels in the house. All these things can deter them from choosing your home to have a party at.
How do you tell a tenant that you'd rather they not come back?
Great question.
So you can say something like, gee, with your, growing group, as each year you're adding more people to your group, it seems like our house really is too small for your group and we're uncomfortable with having 15 people at our house and then everybody that comes over for the 4th of July picnic. It seems like it's too much for the house, is one way to say it if their group is getting bigger.
What if they just didn't abide by the rules?
They didn't abide. So what rules were they not abiding?
Well, I mean, to make sure that they, like, we provide linens, so they're supposed to launder the linens before they leave. Yeah, but they left them all in the bed.
So
Sometimes you have to be just brutally honest with them and just say, I'm really sorry. We feel that, you did not leave the house the way we expected it to be left. And we just don't think that it's a good fit and we wish you well. It's your house. You deserve the right to choose who's going to be in your house.
That's what I wanted to make. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And they probably won't be happy with that kind of a message, but just stand firm and just let them know there's plenty of other options that they can get going and look at the website. And there are a lot of places available still for them to find.
Yeah.
Lisa had a question of how many reviews is a good number per summer season to have?
You definitely want to try to get at least 2 per summer season, but if you can get more than that, that's great. It totally depends on your guests. If you feel like you had a really nitpicky guest who was asking you a lot of questions and complaining about a lot of things, I wouldn't recommend asking that person for a review because they're going to probably nitpick in the review as well. But anyone who had a great time and you feel like you built a great relationship with them, go ahead and ask them for a review, and don't be afraid to remind them, especially if you've waited a few months to ask. It's not on their top priority to do that for you. So I would say don't be afraid to remind them. And there are a few ways you can ask for the review. You can go through our website, through your homeowner center, and you can send an email. It's a little form email. Or you can just go to your listing, click on leave a review, and then you can grab that link and you can text that to them if you were on a texting basis with them.
This has nothing to do with that last question, but I saw a note in chat from Alex saying, suggesting that you Google guests, prospective guests, when they inquire, and that you can learn a lot from that. And of course, that the phone call, and just asking them questions about the size of their party. Have they ever been to the Cape before? What kind of experience are they looking for? You're just a friendly conversation, not an interrogation. But I do think that Googling people could yield a lot of information.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna start to wrap up if we're okay. Great, absolutely fantastic discussion. We're about 8-9 minutes over now. If you have any other questions, please reach out to our team. We are available. support@weneedavacation.com is the best email, and we're happy to help you with any questions. As always, you can call our office as well.